Welcome, beautiful, to the Creating Change podcast with Emma Bradford. Creating change to fall back in love with ourselves and life. Each episode, I'll be offering insightful stories, concepts, and practical takeaways to inspire your day, reconnecting to the authentic essence within. Are you ready, lovely, to embrace yourself even more and awaken to the magic life has to offer? Let's dive into today's episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of Creating Change with Emma Bradford. Today is episode number 55. Can you believe it? 55 episodes in the last couple of years. And today will be the last episode of series 1, season 1. So don't worry, there'll be more in the future. Though this will be the last of this season. I'm taking a little break because creating these podcasts are a huge amount of work and there's a lot on my plate at the moment, and I really need a little bit of time just to really refocus. Where am I going forward, especially in terms of the podcast, like what direction I want to take it in, what would be beneficial, what is financially viable as well, because these podcast episodes do cost me money to make and it needs to be worthwhile as well. So there's many things to consider, many things that I'm thinking about in terms of moving forward with this. Some of those include interviews or a possible subscription. Now, I'd love to hear your shares on this. If you have any requests, any ideas, any suggestions, then please do get in contact, info@emmabradford.net. I'd love to hear your shares about what you've enjoyed in the podcast, what you want more of, what you want less of. When I've spoken to listeners up until now, most of them have said that they just want more. And sometimes the episodes are too short and they just want more of the podcast. So that's something I'm definitely considering, though I also need to make this in a way that works for me as well and also for the business, because at the moment they do cost money and they take up a lot of time and energy to produce these. So I will be having a little break and I will be back in the springtime with some more for season 2. Though for this episode, this final episode of the season, I thought it would be a nice idea to have a little reflection and go back over what we've covered. And there have been so many topics. Oh my goodness. Literally everything from affirmations to the unconscious mind, to soul art, to numerology, to masculine feminine polarities, to personal experiences, reducing anxiety, overwhelm, expansions messages as well, those channeled expansions messages. There have been so many topics. If you haven't listened to some of those, go back and listen to those. You have plenty to catch up on there, or to listen again if you want a little refresher. And I thought in today's episode, I'll talk a little bit about what were my favorite episodes to record and also what have been the most popular according to the listens, according to all of you listening. What have been the ones that have been listened to the most? So I wanted to share a little bit of that also. So one of the episodes that I absolutely loved recording, this was one of the most recent ones that I did, and this was for the 50th episode, and that was answering your questions. I love it when it becomes interactive like this, and you send questions and I get a chance to create a reply in the form of a podcast and we can dive into topics, and you give me wonderful topics that we can talk about. And it is really interesting rather than just me coming up with ideas and topics. I love hearing about what you want to hear about and what you want to learn about and what you want to discover, grow and evolve in. So your questions, I absolutely love that. And I loved doing the Q&A session. So I definitely would love to do more of those in the future. I find it really helps in terms of getting all these questions about things perhaps I haven't even thought about or I haven't considered or I didn't realize you wanted an episode on, and it broadens the podcast and what we talk about here even more. So I really love those. Keep them coming. And other episodes that I have loved recording are all of the expansions episodes. If you haven't listened to any of those, then you can go back and listen to them. The expansions messages are messages that come through my personal practice. I connect to that all loving, all knowing part that resides within all of us. We all have this. And I just set the intention, like that all loving, all knowing part, like what advice does it have? What words of wisdom does it want to offer? I ask questions and then I write in my journal without filter, or as much as I can write without filter. Obviously, the conscious mind comes into it a little bit, though most of the time what comes out and I just start writing, it's almost like automatic writing. I start writing and there are these words and phrases and insights that I haven't even considered. And it comes from somewhere. And some of the insights have been incredibly helpful and useful, and so much so that I have been sharing them in my newsletter list and also on the podcast. So those on my newsletter list get the more updated, regular versions of that personal practice. And here on the podcast, I share little snippets of that, little insights, little words of wisdom that come through these channeled messages. And I have really loved sharing those. And I feel some of the messages have been so useful, especially the one about perfectionism, about that metaphor of the rose. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that episode. That'll be linked in the show notes. It's just really simple messages, but they just bring us back to the truth of it all, bring us back to the heart. And it just feels so soothing when I hear those messages and when I write those words out. And it's like, yes, that's what it's about. And I'm so grateful to have this platform where I can share those with you too. And you can benefit from those words if they resonate with you. So those have been my favorite ones. The expansions messages and also the Q&A sessions. I love to do more of those. Now, in terms of what's been popular, there have been a couple of episodes that stand out. I mean, many episodes have had more views on YouTube or more listens on Spotify and all the other platforms. Though some of the ones that stand out are one of the first ones, one of the early ones, which was all about what to do when we feel like giving up. And this is where I share the metaphor of the music, how human beings are like music. And I use this metaphor in virtually every workshop, every session. It's just so powerful and so useful. And if you haven't heard it, go back and listen to that episode. It'll be linked in the show notes. The simple metaphor that can transform everything, that can really shift our experience of life and wake us up to the magic of life and who we truly are. And are we living up in the head, or are we listening to the heartbeat? Are we listening to the life within us? Are we living from there, or are we living according to the shoulds and the must-dos and the have-tos? Obviously, in this human experience, there will be some shoulds and need tos with responsibilities and day-to-day life. Though overall, how are we living our life? And when we feel like giving up, when we feel like everything is just too much, this metaphor can really help us to come back to the life within and to keep going. And another episode that had a lot of listens was actually sharing some of the insights that I've learned over the years since being an NLP coach and working with people over these last 10, 11 years. That's been one of the ones that's been listened to the most. And I think people were curious to hear my experiences and my journey about what I've learned over the years in terms of working with people in one-on-one sessions and workshops and what insights I've gained from them. And also, of course, some of the first episodes where I talk about my background, where I've come from, my experiences, and with anxiety, all of that, those have had quite a few listens as well. So I'd love to hear from you, what is your favorite episode from season 1? What have you enjoyed learning about? So what episodes have you found useful? What ones have you shared? I'd love to hear You can send me an email at info@emmabradford.net or find me on Instagram, emmabradford5. Also on Telegram, I have a channel, Creating Change with Emma Bradford. You can get in touch. I'd love to hear your shares about that. What have you enjoyed listening to? What has been your favourite episode? So just a short episode today, and just to say a huge thank you. Thank you so much for being here, for supporting this podcast, for listening to the episodes, for sharing these episodes. It makes such a difference. And without you, this podcast would not be going. It's only continuing because of the listeners, and also because it's a great platform where I get to share and express. So I'm so grateful for everyone who's been here supporting this, and I look forward to season 2. I'd love to hear what you want to hear in season 2. And there will be some changes. There may be some episodes that become part of a subscription, or perhaps there are some interviews. There are a few things that I need to make some changes to make it work for everyone and to make it a win-win, and to really help the podcast support itself, because at the moment I'm paying my own money to produce all of this and to have the podcast supporting itself, so I don't end up losing money on this. So thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to the next season. It'll be sometime in the spring. There's no set date. This is the thing. Often there is this fear that comes up sometimes in me, is like, oh, okay, I have this commitment and I need to keep it going, and I need to set a specific date of when I'm coming back, and maybe people will be upset. Like, that's the old people pleasing part. And now more and more I'm aware of it, and I choose to really listen to my truth overall. Like, what is the best for me overall? What is the best for me overall will also be the best for others overall. So this break is much needed. And during this space and this time, this is where I'll be able to really have the time and energy to reflect on what steps to take forward. Often in life, especially in today's society, like nowadays, modern day society, there's so much outward focus and external focus, and go, do, and produce, without any moments to pause, to be, to reflect. And if we want to create balance between the masculine and feminine, we need to have those moments of pause, those moments of reflecting, those moments of going inwards, those moments where we are being. So I honor those. When I feel the need that I need to take that time, I will honor that. And this is what I'm doing now with this podcast, a little break. And there'll be more. Season 2, I look forward to coming back with season 2 with even more topics, and perhaps some wonderful experts too. So thank you for being part of this journey, joining me on this journey. You can still find updates on Instagram and on Telegram. All the links will be in the description. You can still get in contact for one-on-one sessions. There will still be events and workshops if I'm holding those, and meetups. So all of that will still continue. Just for this season, we're coming to a close. Number 55, a great number. Those who've listened to the numerology episodes, 55 is the number of change. And so much of what I do is about bringing about change, seeing things differently. So it just felt like a good time now to end season 1 with number 55. And I'll come back in the spring with more. Thank you so much, and sending you much, much love for the end of this year, the beginning of the new year. And as you continue your journey day by day in this human experience, you are so valued, so welcomed, so appreciated, and so loved. The mind might say otherwise, but you as a human being are a valuable part of humanity. Thank you. Thank you for being you, and sending much love. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, beautiful. You're amazing. All resources and links can be found on my website, www.emmabradford.net. Link is in the show description. Do come and join my community and share your takeaways from this episode. I'd really love to hear. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time, I wonder, what magic will you experience in life today?